all about trust and adding value, right? I'm there to teach customers how to get value out of our product. What you want to do is tie pricing to your most basic unit of value. And for us, that was consumption. Don't give your data to us. Don't give it to anyone, because that's going to be, like you said, your gold. That's your secret sauce. I mean, that's what I'm here to help build.
Today on Billions, I'm sitting down with Ron Gabrisko, Chief Revenue Officer at Databricks. In 2016, Ron joined the startup with less than $1 million in annual recurring revenue, a product beloved by engineers who had never heard from a sales rep before. 10 years later, Databricks runs at $5.4 billion revenue run rate, growing 65% year on year at a $134 billion valuation. No CRO in SaaS history has built a revenue engine this fast from this early at a starting point. Ron, thanks a lot for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here, Guillaume.
Yeah, I'm super excited to get into, the dirty details of what it takes to grow a company to that stage. So when you joined, it was below 1 million in ARR. How was it? And what is the first thing that you decided to do?
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking at kind of later stage companies at the time, and I met Ben Horowitz from A16Z, and he's like, hey, I have this little startup called Databricks. It's way earlier stage. They invented Spark. It's like the greatest piece of software on the planet, and gave it away for free. And I want someone to help them build a business from it. So he's like, it has more upside than any company in my whole portfolio. So I jumped in the boat. We have 7 PhD founders, and it was basically, how do you create a product? How do you create the monetization? How do you create the initial pitch deck? I mean, we had to build everything from scratch. So it was pretty fun. It was pretty exciting. So
lesson one is when Ben says something, you listen and you go all in.
Yeah, exactly. He's done pretty well, So
Indeed.
yeah, exactly. So it was good advice for sure.
And how did it look like at first, when you joined the company, and how exactly do you structure the sales motion and the whole revenue team from the start?
Yeah, I mean, when I first joined, the company was mostly engineers. So I think we had probably 40 or 50 engineers, a couple salespeople. But the initial thesis was go to all the Silicon Valley startups, because they're going to be the earliest adopters of new technology. And the company was actually trying to do what they called zero touch. So it was like product-led growth. But, the product was pretty complex. And so if you have a product that's intuitive, it's easy to try to do product-led growth. In early days, it wasn't that intuitive, right? It was fairly complex. So, step one was let's learn, how everybody's using Spark, how, open source is being used, what people will pay for. So, I hired the initial sales team just to go out and literally talk to all the open source users and say, how are you using it? What would you pay for? What are your challenges? And that's how we built our initial, pricing models and initial pitch deck and all that kind of stuff. So not rocket science, but, trying to find product market fit for sure.
And I'm quite curious because you mentioned okay, you have your sales team and you reach out to developers who are using an open source project.
Mm-hmm.
For me, there is something to unwrap here, because how do you reach out to developers and get them to answer?
Yeah.
And especially talk to sales rep.
Totally.
So what were the method you used to get them to reply?
Listen, I think Databricks, and I've talked about this a little bit, but we're a very technical sales team, right? I think, kind of old school, just relationship sales, in this world, in a very technical world with technical products, it doesn't work, right? So you have to have pretty technical salespeople. And the biggest thing we're doing is trying to offer to help, right? If you have a challenge, we'll bring a technical resource, or we'll try to help with it ourselves. And so that's the biggest thing, I think, when you sell to engineers. Of course, they don't love salespeople. They don't necessarily trust salespeople. And, for me, I've done sales for 25 plus years. It's all about, trust and adding value, right? I'm there to teach customers how to get value out of our product. And that's the biggest thing, It's how do you break that myth of, trying to sell used cars or something like that, right? It's a very professional discipline in sales. And so, we took the approach, let's hire really technical sales folks to be able to add value to these engineers. So
And in your like outreach method, like do you see something that helps you build trust a little bit faster? Is it like using people's jargon? Is it like I don't know, being super specific about the problem that you can help them solve? Like what are the things you've tried that allowed you to get like more replies and more meetings?
yeah, I mean, originally we had, community edition, which is kind of like our free edition, right? And people would sign up for that. We mostly would just reach out and say, hey, just, saw you signed up. Like, is there anything we can help with? Are there any technical challenges? And so if they ran into, hey, can you help me configure this or set up this? Or, I have a memory issue with this. I mean, you just add a little bit of value, you gain trust. You know what I mean? Versus like, hey, can I come pitch you on why you should buy Databricks? And so very different approach is, you got to give to get back. And so that's what we started with, just, very small, like reach out to try to help folks. And, that worked really, really well for us. So,
And to build up on what you're saying, I think like what you did very differently. It's like in 2017, I think like obviously every SaaS company in the world were selling per seat and selling seats. You built basically a consumption model instead. Can you walk us through like how exactly did you build like that consumption model, and how exactly did you choose where to price, what to keep free?
yeah, no, that's a great question. Cause I think one of the I mean, Databricks is a innovation machine, in terms of product, but we innovated quite a bit on GTM too, right? Like I think we're the first pioneer to build a cloud service around open source. And that became like how you monetize open source. And so we kind of created that playbook for the market. I think, a lot of startups and early stage companies, what you want to do is tie pricing to your most basic unit of value. And for us, that was consumption. Seats has a limitation, especially, there's so many people in an organization. But, tying ourselves to consumption when data is growing, queries are growing, AI is going and agents are going to do even more queries. Like that was kind of a genius move that we did as a team. And the market, especially around cloud technologies, was kind of going that way. And so that's where we started. Our first kind of proprietary product was our data science notebooks. So we kind of created this entire category of data science. So, we would enter in through kind of the machine learning and data science teams that were building these models to do predictions. And, so we grew a lot from kind of bottoms up with that specific product. And so we would call it open source core, right? Where we continue to put more and more in open source, but maybe keep some of the proprietary features so that we can continue to build a business. And then we keep putting those in open source. And so, people have, listen, the great part about open source is you're not locked in. You can move away if you need to. And so we kind of embraced that community and that interest, but also built a business around it with other things we thought had value. So,
At the same time, like what's interesting in what you're saying, about open source is the fact that, as you said, like people can move if they want to move. But at the same time, like if you look at your retention number, I don't have like the exact one, but I'm assuming it's like north of 130, 40, something like this.
yeah, we're
Uh,
north of that.
okay. So
Yeah.
that's like super impressive, which means that revenue keeps expanding, your churn is extremely low. So how do you think the two are connected? Or maybe more specifically, like how do you make sure that you give enough value to people so they actually like stay longer?
Yeah. I mean, part of it's just, customer obsession, making sure customers are successful and they love the company. And, I think the entire company, including engineering and sales, are trying to make sure that, they love Databricks. But the bigger part is we didn't just do one open source project. So a lot of open source companies, they build one product, and then they stop. And it's hard to be sticky because then they can probably use that, elsewhere. What we did was we built, Spark, and then we built Delta, and then we built ML Flow, and then we combined Delta with Iceberg when we bought Tabular, which was also open source. We bought Mosaic AI, which was open source. Like, we continue to do these open source projects. And so now it's a fully integrated data and AI platform that's all open source, right? And so I think that's the key to retention is you can't just have one trick. You got to, keep layering on these new innovation engines. And that's what we've done really well at Databricks, right? Is, created this innovation factory where we're constantly, reinventing ourselves and releasing new technology. So.
And as a CRO, like how much involved are you in the decisions of launching like a new open source project or even acquiring an open source project?
I mean, a lot of that's driven by Ali and the founders, right? Like, they have specific cultural things they're looking for in acquisitions as well as technology fit. And, I would say our 7 founders are visionaries for this space. I mean, they teach at Berkeley and MIT and Stanford, and most of the, other innovations come out of those schools, and they've probably taught most of those students. But they have their own vision on where they want to go with the data and AI platform. My role in that, I mean, I do get involved in the acquisitions to understand the sales teams, customers, even try to sell the companies on why Databricks versus going alone. But they're really making the decisions on the technology and the acquisitions. The part GTM solves is like, recently we released Lakebase and Genie and Lakewatch. And so how do I get, all the enablement done? How do I make sure we know how those products add value, how they differentiate with other products in the market? Those are massive innovations for us in the market. And so, we want to try to grab market share and grab customers and get customers using those as fast as possible. And so a lot of the new product and introduction, materials and enablement and all those things, we go pretty fast on that stuff. So.
And what would you say, like from your side, like what is the focus on new businesses versus existing customers and expansion with other product? Like how do you split kind of the effort?
Yeah, I mean, I spend probably, 30% plus on new business acquisition, meaning in terms of resources, people, because I know if we want to continue, we've publicly, 65% plus year over year growth, you got to have new customers because those new customers turn into million, 10 million, $100 million customers. You can't just milk your existing base. I think that's another mistake that some more mature companies make. I mean, obviously our existing customers, because our net retention's, crazy high, like we're getting lots of revenue and in a lot of our new products, we're selling into those existing customers, but you got to do both. So, for example, like Genie, like unlocks such amazing use cases, allows you to talk to your data using AI, does calculations, predictions, it'll do graphs, so CEOs and CFOs are now using Databricks to, be able to get all those answers that they need for, doing predictions and running their business. And so each one of the new products we release, we're telling that story inside that customer, but we're also using those to land new customers. So, you definitely have to do both. So.
Okay, interesting. And when it comes to you were mentioning the fact that you're growing like 65% year on year or like north of that. Every year it gets harder to reach like
Yeah.
that revenue milestone. When it's the beginning of the year or like before the beginning of the year, like when you're setting up what's gonna happen for the next year, how exactly can you walk us through maybe like how do you define where I'm gonna spend money, how I'm gonna do it, who I'm gonna hire, like what's your reasoning about all of it and how do you plan for it?
I mean, The good part is like we're you know, a data and AI company. We do data science on every single customer. So I can kind of predict plus or minus a certain percentage how fast I think each customer is going to grow. And so I know just based on our current products, like how much each customer is going to grow just organically through more data, more queries, all that kind of stuff. Then we'll layer on, okay, these are the new products we're going to release. Okay, let's try to predict, okay, how much, should we be able to sell 100 million plus a Lake Watch or, what are the goals for each one of those other products? And then based on that, we have a model of like, okay, how many new customers do we want to add? We know the productivity of the hunter reps versus the core reps, like how many core reps do we need? And obviously we're putting some assumptions in there in productivity improvements. And so, at this point it's a science. We're doing, like I said, 5.4 billion plus publicly is the number, but it's kind of a science how we do that planning. And again, there's a little bit of predictions on what are the new products going to drive that year. But once we get kind of a model for that, we'll know how much that's going to go the next year and each customer. So it's pretty cool.
And yeah, it's definitely like really cool. But I'm just wondering, like, do you do like outbound on brand new customers that you're going to try to like basically move from a competitor or else to your platform? Because I'm assuming like this predictive model works well for existing paying customers because you can tie obviously all the data to the usage and you can look at how fast the usage is growing, and then eventually you can I guess draw a line, if I simplify it, to make the prediction. But do you also think of, okay, in terms of new customers, how many new customers do I need? What's kind of my target addressable market? How am I going to split it? Like, how do you think about all that?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be like, hey, we've segmented the market. We know 7,000 companies in the world make up about 90% of the TAM. And we've done that using data sets, that we bought, looking at cloud spend, at different product spend, things of that nature, right? And so we're focused on how do we get all of those companies as customers. So assuming we have, a certain percentage of those, we want to go get the rest. We know each hunter AE can land, this many new customers, say like, depending on the segment, if it's like a strategic or name segment, they might be able to land one or two in a year. If it's like a, kind of startup or D&B, they might be able to land 10 or 20 in a year. And so we're measuring those. Now, the actual dollar impact of those inside that year is not huge because they're just starting to consume. But we also know by segment, right? We know for like, hey, a retail customer of this size is going to grow approximately this much the first year, this much the second year. So again, we're analyzing, we know the lifetime value of each one of those new customers based on the segment. And so we can kind of use, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm investing ahead of the curve on new business acquisition. We're investing, approximately 30% to make sure we get all those new customers because we know lifetime value of those is in the tens of millions of dollars for us. So
Wow. Yeah, so you can spend a bit of dollars for acquisition.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And and how exactly is like the revenue team? How is it split exactly between? Do you have like marketing, go to market, sales? Like how exactly is the whole structured?
Yeah, we have sales, we have field engineering, which is pre-sales, we have marketing, we have SDRs, we have sales ops. Those are kind of the key components, I would say, in partnerships. We also have vertical specialists and product specialists. And so as you get larger, we're probably, 5,000 plus in the field. Um, you need specialists, right, for certain products and certain verticals. So we're verticalized, you know, uh, it's awesome because data and AI, like literally, will transform these companies. And we can tell a story on how you can use Databricks to, increase revenue, reduce costs, transform these companies, right? And so, for example, like we work in, pharma and in the genomes, like now they're doing new R&D for drugs virtually. They're, doing data and AI and data science on different compounds, matching it against medical records. And, Regeneron found a new liver cancer cure. That would have taken them, years and years. It accelerated R&D by 10x, right? And so we can tell that story, and you want to be able to tell that story for every pharma company. And if you're in retail, you want to be able to tell how they're managing, increasing revenue for, how they maximize revenue by where they put products on the shelf, what promotions they're running. Every industry has different use cases, right? So we've mapped those use cases to know, hey, this is how this vertical uses data and AI to make the biggest impact on their company. And so we want to go sell those outcomes to the CEO, to the CIO, to the CDO of those companies on how we can help accelerate those. And so we're organized vertically. I mean, obviously we have North America teams, EMEA teams, APJ teams, but it's all organized vertically, so we can tell that outcome-based story for each vertical.
And when you say you're organized vertically, does that mean also that, for example, in the marketing team, you're going to have like specialists on, let's say, this pharma vertical, or do they work across like several industries, but the verticality is more about the product specialist and pre-sales or sales?
No, we have both. So like for retail, we'll have a GM and a tech GM that will understand the entire market. What are all the, call it, different use cases that, say, a large retailer would want to use data and AI. And we can even calculate what we think for each specific company, what it's going to be worth to them to implement data and AI. And then in the same way, we'll have like a Genie or lake-based specialist that can go really deep on how does Genie help with their specific data sets. Can we configure it to make sure that, our biggest retail customers can take advantage of it? And so we kind of do both. But the vertical specialists sit inside of sales. I compensate them basically based on the success of that particular vertical. And so, we've aligned everyone on how do you make sure the company continues to grow super, super fast. So,
Really interesting. And I think recently you've done a partnership with Anthropic to make
yep.
sure that all the Databricks users were able to leverage it directly. Like, how exactly do you position yourself when it comes to this kind of partnership? Because Anthropic is obviously right now, like they have surpassed, like OpenAI in terms of revenue. Like, are you, whenever you do a partnership, do you only work with one specific company, or do you also consider others? Like, how exactly do you create this kind of?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, we partner with Anthropic, but we also partner with OpenAI
Okay.
and Gemini and GCP. And so, like, a lot of our customers want kind of model optionality or coding optionality, depending on, what they're using. It's similar to how we partner with the clouds, right? So we're a first party on Azure, which is unique. But, we obviously run on AWS, Azure, and GCP. They might have their own native technologies too. But a lot of customers, one, they think Databricks is the best data and AI platform. And similar on AI, like, again, I think, the value of AI is how do you apply it to your proprietary data to make decisions and recommendations and predictions for your company. And, Databricks is the data platform in most of those companies. And so for a lot of enterprises to get value out of AI, they need to connect, some kind of AI system to Databricks. And so that's why we partner with all of them. And yeah, I mean, they're growing super, super fast, obviously, but it's exciting times, like, for sure.
And do you feel like the AI wave we're seeing right now? Do you think that it's helping accelerate Databricks business also?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've already, I think publicly we said we've done 1.4 billion just in AI already, right? So that's probably one of the fastest growing parts of our business. And I think it's just the beginning, right? Like companies are just starting to adopt this technology. It's absolutely game changing. So we're excited about it. I mean, Agent Bricks and Genie and a lot of the products that we offer, leverage AI. Again, we're focused on enterprise AI, not necessarily consumer-based AI, but how does that AI with your data, how does that help you make decisions and predictions and really at a CEO, CIO level? That's the whole focus of Genie. So
And can you walk us through maybe like a few use cases that you found like great and you were like, ah, okay, like this is next level of what we're gonna be able to do?
yeah, it's so cool. And we build out these like custom demos and then proof of concepts for our customers as well. But like, looking at like a big retailer, they were looking at, okay, how do they, try to maximize revenue from their short stock, right? So like, if you're a grocer and you have certain things that are going to expire, what kind of promotions? And literally you can see which stores in the network have potential short life products. And then there's agents that will go look at that data in that store and recommend what promotions they should run for that particular store based on the demographics and all the buying. I mean, that's crazy, right? Like you're basically it's a retail knock, right? A network operating center, which is pretty cool. I mean, I gave some of the pharma examples, in banking, they're doing all kinds of fraud detections. So obviously, when you see you know, uh uh an email on your phone or a text on your phone that, hey, this might potentially be fraudulent. That's, usually Databricks in the background running machine learning models to determine this is way outside your normal purchasing patterns. But again, like if you think about it, like a CEO, if they're like, hey, what's happening with my business? Uh, again, these retailer, what's happening with my business? Why is, the Southeast slowing down on sales? Like normally they'd go get an analyst. The analyst would run a bunch of reports, send them back a report. They would look at it and say, okay, that makes sense. Like change this, add this. And they go back and they come back and like the data now is stale. So update the data. Now they literally can just start typing English and say, hey, what's going on in the Southeast? It might be like, hey, the beverages aren't selling as well. You should try doing, different shelf placement. I saw that increase in the Northwest region, right? Like they're literally just interacting with the data and asking questions. It's absolutely game changing for CEOs, CFOs, CIOs. So it's incredible. So
Yeah, it's exciting, exciting times ahead. And
for sure.
I'm I'm just wondering, like, do you sometimes have like, because you're focusing on enterprise and very large enterprise deal, so the data for some companies is equivalent to gold, I would say, and they
Hmm.
don't want to share it with everyone around them. So is, like, do you sometimes struggle to close deals because of how the data is handled and this kind of thing? Because we've seen it a lot. Some companies typically don't want to use like Anthropic, don't want to use like OpenAI, etc., because they don't want to share kind of like their data with some like AI companies. So how exactly do you navigate this from your perspective and the enterprise clients you work with?
Yeah, I mean, you never give your data to us. Like that's the whole, great part about Databricks is you store it in open storage. You own your data. Like there's a lot of companies out there that are like, you give your data to them and then, you have to make sure it's safe, all that kind of stuff. You never give your data to Databricks. It stays in open storage, in open data formats, Delta or Iceberg. Again, that's the key, right? To in that provides an even playing field too for the entire industry. Like let the best engines and the best products win that work on top of that data. And so that's a big thing about Databricks is don't give your data to us, don't give it to anyone because that's going to be like you said, your gold. That's your secret sauce, right? Is how you make new products and new predictions and make decisions on that data. So don't give it to us, don't give it to anybody. That's a big key of the lake house and how we built out the data world.
Nice. Can you walk us through like the process to close such a big deal? Like what are the different stages? Who's involved? How do you handle like the pressure on these kind of
Yeah.
things? Yeah.
I mean, listen, like, all of our customers started from, one use case and, decided to use us for at least some kind of business use case or migration. And as you start to expand your presence inside of those accounts, like our main thing is we're looking for more use cases, right? We're looking for where we can add value either on the business side or, retiring legacy technologies. So we retire a lot of on-prem technology, Hadoop, old data warehouses, because you can consolidate all that. And when you consolidate all that, one, it saves you a bunch of costs. But now if you have all your data organized in under Databricks in our unique catalog, now I can do all these cool AI data science use cases. And so if you want to take an enterprise or, even, some of the digital natives or any of the startups and transform your company and be able to use data to make decisions, you got to get it all organized, right? And so we'll start with going to each BU and starting to show the value of Databricks. We usually use those internal champions as references. And as companies start to use data, it's an amazing product. It's best product I've ever sold. And so they, will continue to use it and we'll kind of predict, okay, here are the other 30 projects you want to use Databricks for, right? Like if we're inside of a large bank or a large insurance company, they might be using it for claims fraud and using it for how do I automate claims processing? How do I automate claims pre-authorizations? Like, et cetera, et cetera. And we're understanding kind of those usage patterns. And, for us, then we're going to build out, okay, how do we make a strategic plan with that customer to make sure that they can, grow with us and we can continue to add value. And so usually we'll do a business case. It'll show them that they can save or make billions of dollars. And, for the larger deals, we're usually connected to CEOs, CFOs, CIOs to make those decisions. And, we have enough champions that they're like, yeah, Databricks is the best product and best partner in the industry to work with to do these transformations. And so, most of those are years of work. They don't happen overnight, but
I assume.
exciting times.
Whenever you have like, I mean, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how do you come up with the pricing eventually? Because of course you have like usage based, but there is a difference from selling, as you mentioned, when you got started, it was around like 20K deal up to like hundreds of millions. So how exactly, when it comes to the business case, you mentioned, I guess like value-based pricing, where you essentially try to identify how much value you're going to bring to the company, whether it's the amount of money you're going to help them save. How do you come up with the number? Like, because in enterprise sales, obviously, like the pricing is not on the website. Like there is not, if I go on Databricks, there is not like, hey, here's your...
Ours is, we put all our, I mean, it's all
Yeah.
usage based. We're not doing value based pricing. I mean, I think
Okay.
Palantir does that, but it's all our pricing's on the website. It's super transparent. It's all usage based. So the biggest part is we can see those usage patterns. Like we know for these 20 use cases, based on this amount of data, we can kind of predict what kind of usage. We already saw like we might have 3 years of data of how your usage is going up. And then we layer on these new use cases so we know that might accelerate the usage a little bit. And the reason we're doing value is like you're not going to spend, even $1 million or $10 million unless you're getting, 10x that in value. And so, we have a team that goes in and says, okay, well, here's how that's going to impact your revenue. Here's how you save costs, to be able to justify that and make sure, and we're doing quarterly reviews with that company to say, okay, we're on track. We want to go back and measure that. But, we're not doing value-based pricing. I know some of the enterprise software like Palantir does. But we don't do that. It's all usage based. It's all super transparent. Just go to the website and
Okay, so you're keeping
uh,
like the very like open source mentality, and
yep,
you know what you pay for, and okay,
totally,
okay.
totally. And I think, and that's been really good for us, right? Because people want to know, like, transparency. Um, and that's helpful too when you go in for renewals. Because like when you go in for a renewal, if we did a 3-year deal, they want to know, what kind of value did I get out of the last 3 years. You need to be able to show them the actual value. And so I think the value-based pricing starts to fall apart once you try to go for those renewals, because you've already built it, right? You have to go after new projects. So, um,
Yeah, I agree. And I think in any case, like usage based, to be honest, is so obvious, because if you look at and I think that's also what happened recently, like a lot of companies, or even when I think Elon Musk, went to the government and started looking at what people were paying, and they realized that they had I don't know how many licenses of Adobe it was that were basically just unused. It was a seat-based pricing, and
yeah,
no one was using it. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
yeah, totally, totally. I think even the companies that were traditionally seat-based pricing, like Salesforce, they're trying to move to consumption-based models. I mean, you have to, just, you run out of seats, especially you know, in the new world. So,
In what way do you think, like, or like, I'm going to rephrase my question, in 5 years from now, because you've raised now at like a $134 billion valuation, like 5 years from now, like what do you think Databricks look like?
I'm here to help build. I think it'll be one of those generational kind of transformational companies. I don't think enterprise AI is valuable without your proprietary data. And I think Databricks is the most trusted, product and company to, manage your data and connect it to AI. So I really like the space we're in. I think it will, touch every human and change every company. And that's our goal. With Genie, we can expand every single user in a company. We released Databricks One and Databricks Mobile, so now you can get it on your phone and get all your ask all your questions to your data while you're, you know, traveling or whatever. So it's pretty cool. I think I think Databricks will be an absolutely iconic company. So you know, we're
What
on it.
what's your feeling with the kind of like chat usage? Because I feel like this is actually quite new. For a long time, if you look at how software were designed, it's mostly like you have like a mouse, you click on buttons, you do actions, and this is how like things work. But the chat interface, I think it's not something like that people have been, I feel, using that much to get answers from software. It kind of like started with ChatGPT. And what's your view about it? Because I'm assuming that you also have tons of data on how much query people are making. Do
Mhm.
you feel like for data, the chat query is usually the best, or do you try to also give like ideas to people and be a little bit more proactive in a sense, like sometimes Anthropic does it, where they want to refine a bit what you are saying, and they would propose like a few set of options so you can dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple things. Like one, like Genie code will actually help you write uh, data engineering and data science like models and workflows. And right, so we're starting to automate some of that to help out data scientists and data engineers. It just makes them way more productive, for our business. I think the other thing that's happening with a lot of these vibe coding tools is I think every single app in the world will get recreated. It'll be much more custom to what they want. I mean, we did that with our own, I run our business on Databricks. We call it
Hmm.
Databricks on Databricks. Like I can predict our revenue within a couple percentage, right? I can see which customers might churn, what products they're using. So I think every app will get recreated and it'll get recreated with vibe coding. You want to have AI, you want to have predictions, you want to have agents in there. And so that's a big part of why we release Lakebase. Like Lakebase, if you look at the old databases, like every single app needs a database. Every single one of these vibe coding needs a database. We bought Neon as a part of Lakebase, which is really an AI database. Like the next generation of databases need to be able to handle massive volumes from AI and agents and be able to, set them up and tear them down and branch them immediately. And so, we think Lakebase will be the foundation of all the new apps that people, use vibe coding to build. And so that's again another huge transformation for every one of these companies instead of using, say, out of the box software. So I think
Can you
that's where
explain
vibe
like
coding will.
yeah, sorry. Can you explain like why you think like you're gonna need a new type of databases with AI? Like what does that change from a conceptual perspective?
Yeah, the biggest part is we separate storage and compute. So similar to what we did in the analytics space with the lakehouse, right? Like if you have to expand storage and compute at the same time, it makes your database super rigid, right? And so a lot of these AI and agent based applications, they want to be able to spin up a database in, milliseconds and then shut it down. So you don't want to have to pay for it when it's not running, right? Because, think about it, like in the future, you have millions of agents hitting these applications, right? It's going to be, today applications, are for humans. There's so many humans that are using it. Now it's going to be agents. It's going to be 10x, 100x. And so the difference of separating compute and storage is super important. And so, if you think about our lakehouse concept, where it's like take all your, it was all your data for your data lake and your data warehouse, put it in an open format so you can do all your analytics on one set of data. We're going to do the same thing with Lakebase for databases, right? And so I think it's a huge transformational shift in the database market, and that's what's needed for AI and agents. So
Yeah, that's really cool. And do you also feel, because I know like a lot of I mean some software company basically leverage Databricks in the backend and they use it, for their customers also.
yep.
So in the future, you can think, per what you say, that agents are gonna also sometime be using, this kind of interface. And do you feel like there is a way for Databricks at some point to kind of like also charge the agents and not the user in some way?
Yeah, I mean, again, like agents, because we have Databricks apps too, right? Which is similar to kind of vibe coding. But like, there's literally tens of thousands of Databricks apps out there already. Agents for us, again, it's consumption based. So agents again are running queries, asking questions, building pipelines, doing ETL, building models. It's for us, it's the same as a human in terms of how they use consumption. And so we love agents. Uh,
They're
I
good for
mean,
revenue.
they're good for revenue and they automate a lot of things, right? Like they increase productivity for our customers. And like I said, I think every person in an enterprise or in a startup or in a DMP company should be using Databricks. And so that's a big reason why we created Genie and Agent Bricks. So
Nice. And you said you've basically replaced a lot of the apps you were using. Um, what are like the apps you've replaced and where now you feel like you couldn't go back to the old apps per what you just built?
yeah, I mean, just to give you an example of like, we call it our GTM hub. We still store our data in Salesforce, but how our reps and managers and even me interact with it, like I can get pretty much infinite access to whatever data I'm looking for. And so, I have a dashboard. It measures all my forecasts. I can measure those forecasts, uh, by region, by customer. It does data science models on that. It tells me which customers would churn. It also tells me like, hey, it recommends next best action. Like for a AE that has a retail customer, it might said, "Hey, you sold them like, some e-commerce, uh, functionality, but you should also be talking to them about, next best action for their retail store and things like that, promotion analysis, things like that." So we do next best action, churn analysis, um, revenue predictions. I can see which products we should be trying to sell to which customers. It's been all customized for what I need to see as my business. And so I think every company would want that, right? Like if I'm selling beverages, and we've sold this to a bunch of customers, they want their reps to be able to see, okay, which stores are consuming which beverages. They even have it like I'll take a picture of the shelf and it'll make recommendations on where I should put certain products. It'll make recommendations on promotions I should be running inside of that store. Like it's your own little cockpit, uh, for your business. Another example, like rental cars, they're like little franchises and they're trying to run their business while also doing all their financials and all that stuff. And so you might be like, oh, my customer sat's going down. How come? I'd be like, oh, your couple cars weren't cleaned. So go, make sure they're cleaning the cars, or, you should be trying to upsell gasoline more, whatever. And again, all these dashboards, real time, and they're predictive, and they have Genie attached to them where I can just ask questions in English or whatever your language is, uh, and get answers back and get, predictions and graphs and whatever you need. Like it's crazy, crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. And did you had to I don't know, like let go some data analyst or these kind of things? Because for me, I feel this is a position, that whenever I need typically like to ask a question that's data related for many years, I had to go through either analysts or scientists that would take time to analyze like all our data. They would do like very complex queries to make sure that they get everything right. But to be
Mhm.
honest, now I think it's as you said, it's like you can ask just in plain language and get replies. So how did it affected, like the team?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, we're still growing super fast. Like I'm hiring a significant number of people again this year. I think the biggest thing is like, it's more of increasing access, right? So there's still going to be a lot of complex things that you want humans. I mean, you want a human in the loop when necessary, right? But increasing access to where, you know, the simple stuff is just right there at your fingertips and everyone can just ask those questions is like pretty game changing for companies, right? And so I think productivity will go up significantly for every employee, not just the analysts. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I
that's what
agree.
I see so far. So
Yeah, I agree. I think like everyone has been talking about, like AI replacing jobs, but from my point of view, everyone using AI is just like working more because they are more productive and can do more stuff. So yeah.
yeah, I saw like I read an article. It was like they thought like a lot of the automation on, radiology was going to, replace radiologists, but radiologists actually went up. It just meant more people were actually getting tested, right? And so I think more people will use data now to make decisions because they have access to it. And that will increase better decision making, increase productivity. And so um, I
Yeah, I
think that's
agree.
where the market will go. So,
I agree. I know we're almost running out of time, so my final question for you would be like, what's uh, what's the project that excites you the most at the moment?
yeah, no, Genie is, I've obviously talked a bunch on your show. Thanks for having me about Genie, but listen, like, there's nothing like it on the planet, right? It knows which data to go look at. It measures access to, like if I ask a question like, hey, something I'm not supposed to ask, like, what are the salaries of all the executives? It won't let me have access to that kind of data, right? Like you have to
Good.
have that too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You need governance and compliance and security and so that's the great part about Databricks, right? Is you can connect, Genie to ask those questions, and it won't get access to data it's not supposed to have access to. And also, but if I have the rights to it and I say like, hey, help me solve this problem, it's going to help you solve that problem, right? And that's going to be based on your proprietary data. There's nothing like it in the market. I hope every single person that's in a company or running a company that interacts with data should use Genie. But I'm crazy excited about it. It's going to be awesome. So
And to be honest, you got me excited about it. So you just made
nice,
another sales today.
love it, love it.
Well, Ron, thanks a lot for your time and everything you've shared. Where can people follow you or get updates on Databricks?
Yeah, just follow me on LinkedIn. Like, you know, um, lots of great innovations going on out there. I think, like I said, I think Databricks is a rocket ship. We're hiring lots of folks too. So, follow me or interact with me on LinkedIn. And thanks for having me, Guillaume. Really appreciate it. And next time.
Yeah, see you
Thank you.
next time. Thanks a lot.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye bye.